Hello, and welcome to today's demo on Denodo Query RAG. Before I get started, I just want to address the one question that we always get asked. Isn't every data company doing some form of RAG? And the answer is yes, they are. And the reason for that is because everyone is using the same LLM technology to automatically generate their SQL. So why should I care about Query RAG from Denodo? Well, the reason for that is pretty simple. A successful RAG implementation isn't about what LLM you choose or how fast you can load a vector store. It's about the metadata. And at Denodo, metadata management has always been our core competency. So let's take a look at the demo scenario for today. So I typically run monthly and quarterly reports in Salesforce.com on my team's activities. The schema that I use has typical column names and descriptions that you would see in a reporting system. They're clear and concise, but they're not very descriptive. And so when I start running the RAG queries against the existing schema, it gives me some frustrating results. And the reason for that is because without accurate metadata, it's going to try and guess what columns to pick. And it ends up being more of a SQL generation tool where I need to tell it what view and columns to use than an actual chatbot. So we're going to enrich the metadata with our AI assistant to provide some more context to the LLM. And the reason for this is that the metadata needs for an LLM are very different from a human. Generally speaking, the more detailed and descriptive, the better it is for the LLM. And so after enriching the metadata, you'll see that our answers start to make a lot more sense. Not only do we get more accurate results, but it's a completely different conversational experience. Let's start out in the data catalog so I can show you exactly what these schemas look like, and you can see what the difference is in the metadata between the two different models. So here I have my SE reporting schema, and this has the original tables or base views that I'm using for my reporting. And today we're going to focus on the employee table. And so you can see it's a pretty basic description of the view, but that's not really the most important. The column descriptions are really the most important. And as I mentioned, this is very typical for what you'd see in a reporting system, right? The field descriptions are, concise, but they make sense. Now, if I take a look at the AI enhanced schema, on the other hand, and I look at the employee, you can see that the view description is obviously more verbose, but what really matters if I look into the schema itself is the area field here is going to be something very key in our RAG retrieval because this defines what area employees work in. And if I look at the description here, you'll notice that it's put a complete list of values for that column here. Now, this is something that a human wouldn't find super useful, but the AI is definitely going to find this helpful. So let's take a look at how these two different schemas behave when we start running RAG queries against them. So let's take a look at what the AI SDK looks like in action. So here we have the sample chatbot, which we built with the AI SDK. And to start out, I just asked it a very basic general question. Basically just said, hey there, I'd like to ask you a question about Denodo. And you can see here this little AI icon tells us that it basically answered the question using the large language model. So this didn't require it trying to go out to the Denodo database to get any information. It just came straight from the LLM. Now, if I ask it something specific to Denodo, like, for example, what does the employee table look like? In this case, since it's asking for a description of the table, it's just going to come back with a metadata answer. And you should notice that these columns and these column descriptions are the same ones that we saw over in the data catalog when I was showing you the reporting schema. So now, let me run an actual query and see what kind of data it comes back with. So here I just want to see all the sales engineers at Denodo. So first step is it's going to send it out to the LLM, and then that's going to generate the SQL, and then it's going to run the query against Denodo. Okay, so it's tried to query the database, and it comes back saying it appears there are no records for sales engineers in the database. Now, one nice thing is I can check what the query is that was created to see if it was actually a valid query. And I can see right away that this is exactly the type of mistake that we typically see when the metadata is not enhanced or is not accurate. In this case, it took a guess that the position field actually represents what role somebody has at Denodo, even though that's not the field that we use. So now let's take a look at what the chatbot would look like after we've enhanced the metadata with the AI assistant. Okay, so let's take a look at what all that additional metadata does for the accuracy of our searches. So rather than using a simplistic query, I'm going to actually ask it a query that I would typically need in my day-to-day job. Show me all the SEs in North America. And here's the result, and this is exactly what I was hoping to see. So these are all the people that report directly to me on my team. So after that's done running, I wanted to show you the query real quick and point a couple things out. So the question that I asked was to show me all the SEs in North America, but if you notice, it actually turned that into a filter for sales engineering SEC division. So it was smart enough to know that SEs refers to something that's actually in our database. So now I'm going to run another query that I typically would run in my day-to-day job. So I support a lot of RVPs out of North America, and one of the ones I support is Parker Thompson. Hello, Parker. And so I'd like to see all the folks who report directly to Parker Thompson. And here's the results that I was expecting to come back. So these are all the sales directors who report directly to Parker. And if I take a look at the query that Denodo issued, you can see that it basically did a search on Parker Thompson first, and then basically figured out what his user ID was and matched that to the manager user ID in the employee table. So it can do several different iterations of how to find the correct result. So here, I did a quick search by geography, and then I did another one based on who the manager was, and it's able to determine that information on the fly quite easily. So to close out, I'd like to use a slightly different type of question to really show the type of conversational interaction that I'm talking about. So here, I'm basically telling it to go find the longest tenured Denodo employee and write them a congratulations note. So it's going to go out here and do the search on the employee table to find whoever's been here the longest. And ultimately, it's going to write a congratulation email to Angel Vina. So if anybody sees Angel today, please congratulate him. That's the demo for today. Thank you very much.